If you've ever noticed, car dealerships don't ever seem to be for sale. At least there's no signage out front that says, hey, you want to buy this business? Let us know. That's because it's a very specialized market, and they don't use signs. They don't do things like that. It's basically all word of mouth. And they have representatives who move and handle the transaction. One of these people that actually does this for a living is a good friend of mine, Mr. John Mecham, a sales legend. We're going to have an interview with John and talk about his past career as a dealership owner and his success and some of his failures. John's a fascinating guy, and I think you'll agree.
John. And you're a guy that I've known for, how long?
Wow.
A while now, huh? A long while. Better than a decade now, I guess, huh?
Yes.
Something like that. It's been a long time.
It feels like I've not ever not known you.
Yeah, I know how you feel. You've been a powerful influence in my life. You've taught me a lot of wonderful things, and you have a lot to share. And I've always thought it's a total shame that more people don't have a chance to learn from you and hear the things that you have to say. Because the information that you share is as good as any of the things that have been popularized or mass-produced or mass-mediated or anything like that. There's so much information that's good out there for sure, but there's insights and things that you have that are unique and special and awesome. And that's the main reason I wanted to get you on this call, so we can talk about some of the awesome things that make you you. I've had just nothing but the best experiences learning from you, knowing you, and being your friend. So I'd like to ask you some questions now and see if we can reveal some of the incredible John to the world.
How kind of you.
It won't take much from me. Unlike, there's a lot of people, you got to really pull it out of them, you know? You got to really suck the information out of them. You're a guy that's just kind of like, hey, just turn on you're one of those guys who walks in, you have a great conversation with your waitress. You and I are similar that way. We're both ready to talk and have a discussion, and we're looking for other enlightened souls or people who wish to be enlightened, if that's a thing, and discuss
we have a curious spirit.
Indeed, a curious spirit. That's what it is. And that's something I've always admired about you, and I think you've had that ever since you were a little boy. I know I have.
Yeah. In fact, I have a picture of me in front of my dad was a sheep herder, and 5 of us stayed in that sheep camp. And I should send you that picture because it's...
Actually, I'd love to see that picture. You know, both you and I, my great-grandfather was a sheep herder, and your father is a sheep herder, and we have a lot of similar things like that. Both you and I are from small communities in rural Utah. A little background on you real quick, John. John has owned a bunch of big car franchises, is a great salesperson, and now currently sells dealerships. He brokers dealerships from one owner to another. When you drive past the car dealership, you'll never see a for sale sign out front. That's not how it's done. It's done through back channels and very quiet advertising within a very limited community. And John is one of those experts that people trust to help make their $5 million, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million purchase.
Well, having a car dealer, I speak the language. I had a couple of stores. One made a lot of money. One I lost $7 million on. So I can.
You've lost more money than a lot of people have made, and I know it takes a big man to talk about losses. Very few people are able to discuss their loss or actually discuss the number. Most people will say, like, I can't talk about this, I can't talk about that, you know, whatever.
Right.
You know, they're stuck. You've always been good about talking about your failures, screw ups when you've been screwed over, and I think that $7 million wasn't much of a thing that you handled poorly. With somebody else who treated you poorly.
Park City, Summit County. When I bought the letter of intent from Dan Eastman, I wanted to open up a store in Park City because 25% of my business in Salt Lake came from Park City. So,
which brands were those?
Chrysler, Dodge, and I didn't have a truck line, so buying that I could get the truck. And so I already had Jeep and Plymouth and Chrysler in Salt Lake, but I wanted Dodge. So I paid the money in September of 1998, $1 million for the opportunity. And that year, the county commission voted in 3 new commissioners, all from Colorado who moved to Utah. 2 from Aspen, 1 from Boulder. And they wanted to change how things worked in the county. So they would not let me have a parking lot, a brand sign. I couldn't park cars outside of the store that you could see from I-80. So I had to build a building with basement. Well, the second I found out that was
I-80 is the big highway that drives by there. It's
yeah.
It's prime ground for those people listening who don't know the geography. That's a prime piece of dirt. It's essentially like having a dealership that you paid a lot of money to have along the side of the freeway, and then having some bureaucrat who just moved to town telling you, "Hey, you can't put your cars out here on the main drag that you paid for." Oh, that's okay.
Oh, it was horrible. So immediately I tried to sell the franchise. In fact, when I was bidding on the location, a couple of dealers, Larry Miller was one, Craig Christensen was bidding on it, and I won the bid at $1 million for the opportunity to have.
Just for the opportunity, without buying any cars or anything else, just $1 million just for the opportunity, right?
Just the opportunity because I had Jeep, I had Chrysler, I had Plymouth at the time, and I wanted Dodge trucks. And so 25% of my business came from Park City. I'm right down on State Street and I-80. I wanted to buy it and protect all my assets. And then all that happened. Here's the funny thing. Being who I am, I didn't obey, and I put cars outside of the showroom, and I got a warrant for my arrest because I violated the county's ordinances. And so I did my own TV commercials, and so I turned myself into the sheriff's office with my advertising agency with cameras and stuff, and I was going to be in jail and say, "Hey, come bust me out, come buy a car from me so I can get out of jail because I'm a bad guy." I actually show cars where you can see them from I-80. And all that was all scripted and ready to go, and the sheriff said, "John, we're going to arrest you." I said, "You have to, don't you?" I mean, I said, "Yeah, there's a warrant for my arrest for being a bad guy." And he said, "No, we're trying to work through this thing with the commissioners ourselves, but no, we're not going to arrest you." So I had
bureaucrats make business hard, don't they?
Oh my gosh! So in total, I had 67 meetings I went through, and I was always the last guy on the agenda, trying to get a parking lot, trying to get a brand sign, trying to get a sign on the building, trying to get a sign anywhere, because the day we opened.
You want a sign? You want to pay $1 million just for an opportunity, and then you actually expect to be able to put up a sign? What are you, crazy?
I must have been.
You're a sick bastard. You really are. I mean, and I-80 is so lovely. I can't imagine you would want to tarnish I-80 with a big brand sign from a major U.S. car manufacturer. What were you thinking, John?
Oh, so selfish on my part. So selfish. One of the arrests was for when I finally. Here's a great story. The 67th meeting, I got inspired. I hired a badass attorney who did a lot of stuff in Park City, but that hurt me. That cost me probably 30 more meetings because nobody liked him. And so the 67th meeting, I got inspired. I asked one of the ladies, the commissioners, I said, "Oh, I'm curious, what do you drive?" And she said, "A Subaru." "Oh, of course you do. What color is it?" "Green." "Of course it is. That's cool. Don't you wish you had a Subaru dealer up here in Park City? Instead of having to go to Salt Lake?" She goes, "Oh, I sure do." I said, "I'm curious. What prompted you to buy a green Subaru?" She goes, "Well, we were down to a buzz game, a baseball game in Salt Lake, and I saw Nate Wade Subaru, that green Subaru sitting on the corner." So parking a car outside prompted you to buy the car. That's all I'm asking for, is the opportunity to sell cars, because I'm a car guy. Let me have a parking lot and sell cars when people drive by going, "Hey, there's one." That's what I want. Well, finally, they approved my parking lot, and I got to park cars. But I still couldn't have a brand sign. They let me have a 5x10 sign on the building that said I was a car dealer. It was
For
crazy.
most people who don't realize this, like 5 by 10 might seem kind of big, like next to a man, but if you really realize the size of a retail building, particularly for a car business, but any sort of building really, 5 by 10, it's like putting a sticky note on the side of a motorhome.
It's
absurd. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And,
most of those big brand signs, they're 10 feet tall by 30 feet long. That's how big most of those are. They're huge.
And to say you're a car dealership, no one knew we were a car dealership because we didn't have a brand sign. The one that sticks out on the edge of the property goes up and drive by. Oh, there's a Dodge Chrysler Jeep deal right there. No, nobody did. And so that's in 29 months, I lost another $6 million. So that was a total $7 million just gone to you.
Isn't that wild?
It is, but you're right. I'm a sheepherder's son, and the fact that I could lose $7 million is just kind of cool.
And still be okay. That's great that you had it to lose. How old were you when that happened?
I was 52, I think. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are 52 years old who haven't got $1 million to lose, let alone $7. So congratulations to you for being able to afford to lose $7 million. One of the things that I liked about you right off when you and I first met, you're a guy who's always looking at possibilities, and I think that's a really key part of sales. You're looking for solutions. You say, well, how could we do this? How could I do that? How could I figure this out? How could I figure that out? You're a problem solver. What role do you think problem solving has in sales?
Oh, it's everything, and you've got to have people who are not trained, who do not read or experience sales training, are foolish if they want to get in sales because there's so much you need to know. And a good salesperson is one that reads the room well. In order to read the room well, you got to know what they're thinking. And it's really answering objections and understanding what an objection is. Because when a person gives you an objection, you need to know how to deal with them. And there are all kinds. And one of the best things I ever did was I've been to all the training stuff, and it became part of me. But a question I would ask people, in fact, this is funny, I always ask questions. And a guy told me one time, he said, John, why do you always answer my question with a question? And I said, why not?
Why not?
So
boy.
I would, when I had a person on a car, when I was a car salesman, I'd say, let me ask you a question. Instead of saying, do you like the color? Do you like the, I'd say, tell me, when you pull into your garage, you either back in or you pull in straight. And for them to answer that question, they had to be in that car. And if they answered the question, no, we pull in straight. I knew that I had them, no matter what their objections were, they had already pulled that car into the garage straight.
So you'd put them in a situation where they imagined themselves taking the car into the garage.
Another one I'd ask is, I'd say, if you did get this car, where's the first place you'd take it? What, are you taking it on vacation or go see your kids? What are you going to do? And when they answered the question, they had to be in the vehicle to be going to wherever they're going to go, see the kids or go on vacation. And I knew I had them no matter what they said. Now I just had to sell features and benefits and the reasons why we need to do it today.
So features and benefits you sell, but you don't sell those right off the bat. In the beginning, you sell concept. How would you define that? You sell yourself. Okay.
Yeah,
so you sell you, and then features and benefits.
Yep.
Now do you think a lot of salespeople make the mistake of trying to sell features benefits first?
I think that sometimes they go off a canned script without everybody wants to buy from somebody they like. And you have to, first of all, disarm, because they're already coming in defensive. They're already guarded. They're already aware that someone's going to try to sell them something. So the first thing you need to do is let them like you. And you've got to be likable. If you're not likable, then sales is not your deal, because you can go into accounting or something, because if you're not likable, you don't have the ability to be liked, you're not going to be very good at sales, because people buy from those who they like. And so Making a friend of somebody, isn't that tough? It really isn't. If you're a good person, if you have a good character and your soul's clean and all that, you could be a likable person. But it's something, and how you do that is you ask about them, because everybody likes to talk about themselves. So you say, "Where are you from? What brought you down here? How many kids do you have? Where do you live? And where did you come from?" And you let them talk for 20 minutes about themselves. They will open up to you very quickly. They'll go, "Okay, this person cares about me, so I can open up. I don't have to be so guarded in this process." And now it's just a matter of selecting.
Do you feel like that helps you get through? Oh, sorry, John. Do you feel like that helps you get through the because when customers come in, they have this thing, buyers are liars. Customers, they won't tell you the truth about why they're not buying something. Do you feel like if you spend that time asking them those questions, that'll get through more of that and get onto the real issues? Hey, honestly, I just can't afford this. Honestly, this is the real problem. Honestly. Do you help get past that by doing that?
Oh, absolutely. If they feel like they can like you, they will. The selling process is now really a matter of finding out what they want, what they can afford, and you get past all the walls, all the defensive walls.
Do you ever remember being in a situation where a customer would say, "Hey, John, what do you think I should do?"
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
That happened to me all the time too. And I think that only occurs when you ask those questions. That's when I was writing sales therapy. Right.
Yeah,
when I was writing sales therapy and putting that all there, and I decided to name it sales therapy, it's because that's what exactly it is. It's giving the customers a chance. It's training your salespeople by asking them questions. Lots of questions. And the commonalities I find in all my friends that I interview, all the people I respect, the things of commonalities are you need people to get trained, which is awesome. Because before you and I did this call, we spent no time talking about any points, did we?
No.
I said, hey, can I record a phone call? And you said yes, and that was it, right? And I've done that with all the people that I talk to. I don't go through anything ahead of time. I think it ruins a lot of spontaneity. But it's amazing. The same sorts of things pop up. You need to get trained. You need to ask lots of questions, and not just ask questions, the right kinds of questions. Because there's dumb questions, there's good questions, and then there's great questions. I call them tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3.
Yep, absolutely. And you need to be trained on which to use when.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this. So when you get to a situation where a customer asks you, "Hey, should I do this?" or "What do you think?" that's a great deal of responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah. And then
what should a salesperson?
I answer a question with a question. When they say, "What should I do? What do you think?" I says, "Well, what feels best to you?" So I throw the question back on them.
Very smart. Very, very, very smart. They bite on your line. Instead of just trying to reel them in and pull it in, you throw another line out there and say, "Oh, well, what do you think about this?" And then get them to tell you what they're thinking. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what this is about?
It is. And if you are skilled enough that you can vary your answering a question with a question that isn't obvious, you'll do really well in sales, because they'll tell you what you need to know all the time. When they say, "Well, what's the payment on this thing?" I say, "What would you like it to be?" "God, I'd like it to be $250. And I said, "That's awesome, $250. So $250 to $300 is your number?" Yeah, $250. "So you're planning on putting $10,000 down?" "Oh no, we only put $5,000. "Okay, so between $5,000 and $250 to $300 is where you're going to be?" Yeah, that would work. Well, let's see if we can do that. Are you willing to find out? Absolutely.
Are you willing to find out? No, that's a great question. I want to pause there just for 1 second. Are you willing to find out? That's a question that's worded so well. And here's the thing is, and once again, I've always told people, if you think that the industry you're in is so unique and special, I'm here to tell you it's not. Sales is sales. You're not selling a car. You're selling a commitment. But I love the way you worded that just now, and I would go ahead and add that to some of the best questions you could possibly ask somebody. Are you willing to find out?
Yes. And
are you? Because it's non-confrontational, but it's direct, and it demands an answer in a nice way. Are you willing to find out? That's a great word track, John. That's fantastic. I love that.
And if they answer that, boy, what do you know? You know that they're in Now it's just a matter of finding out what the problem is, and that comes from more questions. A skilled questioner is worth its weight in gold for your life. Having the ability to understand how to ask questions, when to ask them, and how to frame them is so important. It really is. It's everything.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things I think that people, you know, I've always felt like people think that in order to be in sales, you need to be devious, sneaky, double dealing, two-faced. And the reality of it is that those people don't make it. The people who are really, really good at this, the people who really continue with the business and do well and get to a point where they have $7 million to lose, they all have the same exact qualities, don't they? And those are
the likability, number one, the understanding word tracks and how to use them and when to use them, and when you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, you'll mess up.
You put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. One of my biggest regrets in life is that I never worked for you. I always wish I had. I would have loved it. It would have been a really fun time. I've worked with a lot of cool people, and you know, you're one of my friends. You're one of my few friends that I've never worked with professionally, but admire professionally greatly, and everyone does. Anyone who knows you or knows your name knows what a high caliber guy you are. But I got to tell you, I've always heard that you're a great manager and a great business owner and a great person to be around. But I think your jokes are hilarious. They're so subtle and good. And I think they work really well with a lot of people. That's really funny. You're funny. You always have been.
I appreciate that. Hey,
let me ask you another. What?
Okay, go ahead. My landscaper just pulled up. They were supposed to be here at noon, so I got to deal with that coming up. So I apologize.
Well, okay. How long is that going to take?
He's just undoing his stuff. 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes left.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great. Thanks for the heads up on that. It's just so we're gonna have to do 2 interviews with you because you got so much to share with everybody. Let me ask you another question, John. What do you think? So just kind of finish what we were talking about there. How important is integrity? How can you be honest? And how can you be straightforward? Or maybe a better question is how can you afford not to be?
Oh, that's the best question. Is you need to work on you. If you've got some crap in your soul, fix it. Shake it out, because good people can discern crap right away. And so if you want to be a great salesperson or somebody that gets something done, do not have a devious soul. Fix it. Fix it. I don't know if you do it religiously or therapy or whatever. Do not try to get into sales if your soul, if your personality has kinks, because people have a pretty good sniffer. They can sniff BS right away. I really believe that. I can tell when I'm dealing with
You're a very perceptive individual, though, more so than the average person. You're a people reader, and there's not very many of those out there. You and I got along right off the bat. We hit it off, you and I, just like within minutes of talking, like within seconds of talking, I think, didn't we?
Yep. And because I think if you have that filter where you can, the BS filter, it's pretty, I mean, mine's worked well all my life and I've been correct. And so I think a lot of people have that same thing. So the customers that come into to buy something, they're already standoffish. They had this little pep talk going, okay, we're going to buy these today. We need to look around, honey. Okay, these guys they're slick, or whatever. And when you can disarm them right away, now you can get somewhere. So having the ability to disarm the wary is important. And so if your soul is tainted, the first thing you need to do is fix that, and you can fix it. And here's what's weird.
Can everybody fix that?
I don't think everybody can, because if they're bad, they're bad. But I think people know if they have a tainted, weird, non-honest soul. And I think the very best.
We've met people like that, haven't we?
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah.
There's some
Too
truly
many.
bad dudes out there doing really good
There are
stuff.
truly bad dudes that hurt people a lot, and that's just
In the world of sales specifically is what we're
yep,
talking about.
yep. There are bad ones out there who have managed to hide their bad souls, and that's who who have all attended the training and learned how to deceive people and cover up their bad souls. That's unfortunate, but there are those.
But you agree you can see through that pretty clear, can't you?
I can, because I have that filter. So do you.
People don't. Yeah. You and I are both unusually lucky in that sense to be perceptive. Sometimes, when we're training sales teams or our employees and things like that, we run into a lot of obstacles. What did you find when you had your sales teams working for you at the dealerships? What was the number one challenge that you had to face every day, every week, every month? What was the number one drudgery you were forced to face?
I didn't look at it as a drudgery. What I expected, because I trained all the time, and I made everybody read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. It was just, it wasn't debatable. That's what you did. Everybody had to read James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. It was a condition of employment. So having forced them to read that stuff, I got to allow them to readjust their brains a little bit, to open up to some ideas. And the people that actually didn't read it, I would find out because I gave tests. And so pretty soon I had a following of people who learned how to think right, to think correctly.
That's an interesting concept, learning how to think
correctly. Because a lot of people don't. They've never
in a better light.
Yeah. So I would highly suggest your followers read James Allen Think and Grow, As a Man Thinketh. It will really make them think, which is cool.
It's on my list of influential books. I totally agree with you. I think it's really great. Would you say that a lot of sales experience or a lot of sales wisdom comes from experience?
Oh yeah. Practice does make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. That's key.
How do you make sure that you're practicing perfectly?
Be aware of your sources. Like if I want to be a brain surgeon, I'd want to study with someone that's done a lot of brain surgery, not someone that thinks they are.
Right.
Someone's history. Follow someone's history. What experience do they have, and are they willing to share that with you? Then huddle around them. You'll become stronger faster.
So there's people in the car world particularly are famous or infamous, I should say, of being less than forthcoming, being less than honest, so on and so forth. What do you? Do you agree that that's a common perception and reputation, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yeah. That's common.
Why do you think that is?
Don't know. What do you think? I'm curious what you think.
I think so many sales forces hire too liberally, and you show up with a heartbeat and they give you a job. It seems like just about every business that's out there, if you want to cut hair, you've got to go to school for a year so you can do it, because heaven forbid that you would try to cut somebody's hair without going to some real education. You want to become a lab tech or teach school, or you'd like to even serving like at Chili's, they don't just throw you out there on the thing. You have to go through a training, right? Or have experience in waiting tables ahead of time. And I feel like a lot of times with sales, car sales in particular, I feel like a lot of times they just looking so desperate for hot bodies because it becomes such a revolving door. So they get a guy.
We call them green peas.
Yeah, green peas. And you just check and see if they've got a pulse. Oh, you've got a pulse? Well, make a list of everybody you know, call them and tell them you're selling cars, and go out there and meet people. And I feel like those tools, or the lack thereof, have a lot to do with the shoddy performance of salespeople, and consequently adds to the revolving door.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the 80-20 rule exists, and
talk about that for a second, would you?
80% of your productivity comes from 20% of your people.
Why?
So you have to find the 20% that have unique skills that are teachable, trainable, and try to get your ratio up. Now, that's just in sales, that's just a normal deal. That's where you get so much turnover. Every time you have a sales meeting, you'll see a new face because of the 80-20 rule. So if a person or a leader or a business owner can concentrate on finding the 20%, and that requires training up, you must find out if your group, one, has the capability, the capacity to learn and grow, and if not, you need to be willing to cull the herd till you're 30-70, if you get to 50-50, you are a stellar sales organization. If you have 50% of your people doing 50% of productivity, that is really cool.
Well, it's better for a business too, isn't it? Because it's consistency. Instead of depending on 2 or 3 bodies to make a big store go around, you've got half the sales force who's engaged.
Yep. And now everybody worries about the expense of training. Well, I'm more concerned about the expense of not training, and not just money wasted, but time. I mean, so much time invested in not training is wasted energy. And if you look at the big picture, you're pissing away a lot of money. You should eagerly invest in training, find that ratio, get that 80-20 ratio in your favor.
Well, as a person who sells training, I agree with you. But but that's the truth though, because there's like a finite amount of bodies that are going to come into your store, to your business, call in. Even if you have the internet, you've only got so much inventory. You're only going to generate so many telephone calls from wherever. So you have this finite amount of business, and it's like, okay, there's going to be 100 opportunities to sell somebody a product, a car, a cell phone, whatever that is. And I have to make the most out of all those. Now, there's 2 ways to do that, right? There's how many deals you can get and how much money you can make per deal. And the more of those you get, the better your ROI is, right? So I think sometimes people don't realize that. They don't realize that they're dealing with a finite customer base, because you really are. There's people who are going to part with their money between now and Christmas. Are you going to get some of it?
Yep.
Yes or no? And not training people, I mean, that's running potential things past people who are not ready to handle it at the highest level. Yeah, McDonald's is this giant empire, and they're not selling the best products in the world. I always pick on them for the food, but I like it. I like Big Macs. But you know, I have business breakfast there all the time. It's a great place to have meetings. So you know, they're offering a product that isn't necessarily well known for being the top of the quality. They have people there. Once in a while, you'll meet an amazing individual working at McDonald's, but for the most part, it's people who are barely literate. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, would you like this? But because they have training, because they have a system, because they have uniforms, because you can literally go into any McDonald's and get the same product, you know, you feel pretty incredible doing that. It's nice to be able to walk into there, and I mean, gosh, I mean, this is how American I am. I've eaten at McDonald's in just about every country I've ever been to. You know, particularly if it's a country where I don't particularly like the food. But I've eaten McDonald's at the airport in Naples, Italy. You know, I like it. It's good. And you go there, and French fries, it tastes the same as the ones that they do in Akron, Ohio. And there's that training, that consistency. There's all those things there that offset language barriers. They offset, you know, people, the human element. And that's what training does, right? There was a guy named Lieutenant Dave Grossman, and he wrote this book. He wrote 2 books. One was called On Combat, and one was called On Killing, which he basically said, we do not, when trouble comes, when business gets busy and there's a lot of people coming through your door, when inventory is an issue, whenever senses are heightened, we do not rise to our abilities. We sink to the level of our training.
Yep, exactly right. Ooh, yes.
Well, that was really interesting, a really interesting perspective. Now, he's a professional soldier who did psyops and stuff, whatever, interesting guy. I think training is training, and because, well, that's my experience. I think it was a very, very interesting thing. And I know when you were a dealer, you spent a lot of time training your guys, and you are an unusual human being because you care about people. And I mean, I wouldn't want to embarrass you too badly, but you've helped people in personal endeavors outside of sales. That kid with the low body mass, he just couldn't add muscle on. But you cared enough to help him get his goals not only in sales, but to actually put on some muscle. I mean, he was dealing with some real issues. It wasn't like, he wasn't a big hulking muscly guy. He was under muscled, and you helped him get to a point where he was doing really, really well. You're a guy who knows how to create accountability. And I guess that's something that I want to ask you about. Obviously, you're a person who's held himself accountable, and most people listening to this are people who hold themselves accountable. You don't listen to an interview like this unless you're a person who is interested in being accountable or are accountable to yourself. But how do you foster that in others?
Well, it's kind of like motivation. Motivation has to be an inside job. Now, you can certainly go to a rally or something and feel stoked, but it doesn't last. And how you keep motivated and accountable is, I believe firmly, 30 minutes every day, the good, the positive, the productive. I mean, have a exercise 30 minutes every day for your physical self, but for your mental self, I believe 30 minutes every day in the good, the positive, the productive. Either reading, listening, watching, learning, 30 minutes, and just commit to that. That will by itself, you will develop the accountability muscle memory by just doing 30 minutes every day. And get to a point where if you miss it, you recognize you missed it. Kind of like a day without exercise. You know you missed it. And tomorrow you're not going to miss it. So I'm a real believer in that one little principle. And if everybody did 30 minutes every day in the good, the positive, the productive, they would develop so much accountability, and they'd appreciate and like themselves more because they know that they're spending time in the good, the positive, productive, which only reaps good rewards for them personally. And they'll learn phrases and they'll learn language and emotion and all kinds of things if they just spend 30 minutes every day in the good, the positive, productive. And that, I taught that everywhere I go. That was my main theme.
Yeah, and that's interesting, and I the one thing I love about talking to people, particularly people that I admire who I think know what they're doing. I know you know what you're doing. I love hearing the word tracks, whether they've thought of something. And it's interesting that, because I know training is important, and I spend quite a bit of time, reading and learning and looking for ways to improve myself. I probably go a little over the top. I spend quite a bit of time doing that. But it's never occurred to me to compare that to physical exercise in the sense that when you don't have it, you notice. You're absolutely right. There's days where things have they start off super early because of an emergency or something that's going on or something you planned out for business. And, the day's done, you say, well, you know what? I spent exactly no time reading today. I spent no time training today. I spent no time looking for answers today. All I did today was just chase around a bunch of kids and, file a bunch of papers with the government and, fight the bank for some, return on a credit card, for $6,000 or whatever it is. That's where in those days you do feel it. And much like the way you do when you don't exercise, you feel sedentary. Your mind feels sedentary. That's very interesting. That's a really interesting thing, John. Very interesting thing to say.
Yeah, again, my singular focused training thing has always been, if I get everybody sold on spending that 30 minutes in good, positive, productive every day, then the motivation, I don't have to supply motivation. They find it. They're inspired by it. One thing catches their attention and they'll chase more. They'll chase more of it. And now they're motivated and they know it's an inside job. I'm in charge of me. No one can make me feel good. I make myself feel good because I'm investing time in myself. But same with if you get out of shape and get fat, and you don't like yourself that much. But when you
can't blame the spoon, you can't blame McDonald's. You got to blame yourself.
Yeah, no, it's not the spoon. It's the discipline. It's it's an inside job. And so when you spend that 30 minutes on the good, positive, productive, and spend that 30 minutes on exercise, any kind of exercise. I mean, I do 25 push-ups a day, and
you're a leathery dude. I'll give you that. You're pretty tough dude. I think you'd give a lot of men half your age a lot of trouble. Growing up as we did, I suppose. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I do it for me.
So are you saying the way to create accountability for people is to give them that information that it is an inside job and that you can't empower them?
Absolutely. And again, stress. 30 minutes a day.
I think that's very interesting. I think you're absolutely right. I can't remember how many times I'd sit in a sales meeting, and when I worked for Toyota, there was me and essentially two other guys, and we carried, the two of us, we'd do about 50% of the store's volume. There was 40-something people there, 43 people selling there, and us three guys, we were all hammering out 25, 35, 40 cars a month, during 08 and 09, and when you couldn't give away a pickup truck because gas was so high. I remember we had this deal, like you come in and get Tundra, you get 0% financing for 60 months, 1.9 for 72. You get a free little giant ladder, $2,000 gas card, and all oil changes for life, or what. You couldn't give these things away. Everybody wanted to come in and do their super duties for a Prius, right? And we didn't have any Priuses, so you had to get, you had to show them the financial thing and why it was better to get a Corolla or whatever you could do. But during that time, there was like three of us who were really just crushing it. And we'd come to the sales meeting and we'd sit there, and everyone else getting the lecture about how they should be, better, how they should be more like us, how they should do all this stuff, and they get in there and they'd put on some sort of a motivational thing, and they'd show you a thing about some crippled guy who hiked Mount Everest, or they play the scene from Rudy, the kid that nobody liked and wasn't really good enough to be on the football team, but finally people felt bad for him. I never thought the movie Rudy was all that inspiring. I thought that was a movie about a guy who should have focused somewhere else. But whatever. If you like that, great. But I remember sitting there watching that, and I remember looking around thinking, he's got to be kidding me, because I sit here as a person who's already motivated, and this is fine, but whatever. And everybody else sitting there, none of them were suddenly like, you know what? I'm going to wake up and work hard and sell 20 cars. Because you know what it takes to sell 20 cars? It takes 100 ups. That's what it takes. Like, if you're not good, that's what it takes. If you're good, like you and I are, I close a 38% ratio, so I can close 38 out of 100 ups, right? But your average person who's maybe not all that good, go get 100 ups. You'll sell 20 whips, but they're not going to do that because they're going to sit inside and put on their phone and watch TikTok or whatever it may be, right? In those days, Facebook was just coming out. Man, everybody's plastered to Facebook. I got to thank Facebook, frankly, because they provided such an ample distraction to all my coworkers that it made it much easier for me to go out and carve out a very decent living for myself. That's part of my secret, letting people get on Facebook. But I remember watching these videos, John, and thinking, this isn't going to persuade anybody. I can't remember maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire time selling cars, or in any sales organization for that matter, where we actually got a training that was like, hey, here's a word track that works. Try this. Lay this out and then say this. Don't say it this way. Here's how you properly apologize for making a mistake. Here's how you go in and get this deal. It was always just like these really like vague, and if it was training, it was always this hard close Joe Verde stuff. Well, nothing against Joe Verde, but Joe Verde is a guy who hasn't made money on a car lot since like 1980. You know what I mean? So it's the hard close, the big. Well, hey, Mr. Customer, I know I totally lied to you about everything that we promised you on the car, but what if we went ahead here and put a gun to your head and made you buy it anyway? What would you say to that?
I threw your keys up on the roof to your trade.
I threw your keys, yeah. You remember him saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, like that's not a joke. For those of you listening, that's not a joke. That's something that literally he would say. And the whole thing, training is just so bad because most people who are offering it, they haven't made money in this century. They made it in the 80s, in the 60s, the 50s, 1920s. And sure, is that great? But these hard closes that don't work, I mean, there's just very little training going on. And if it is going on, I think most of it's outdated and a lot of it's very hardcore. Now, John, you're a guy who is now today moving some very big inventory rather than just selling cars one-on-one or owning your own dealership that sells cars one-on-one. You're actually moving entire dealerships. You're selling whole car businesses. How does that change? How does the sales process change? Obviously, you're dealing with a much more sophisticated buyer, but how does that change you and the way you work, or does it?
It hasn't changed. It's just a couple things in all kinds of sales. If the people don't like you, you won't do business with them. They won't do business with you. So first thing is establish a likability routine. If you're a creep, you're not going to. So you gotta be likable. You really do. And it's easy to be likable. Be honest. If you have a sense of humor, you're way ahead of the game. If you don't have a sense of humor, it's going to be tougher for you. It really is.
Get into accounting maybe, or work for the post office, right?
Yeah, and maybe do some reading in psychology, find out what your strengths are. Maybe it's something else entirely. And the faster you can get on the right track for yourself, the better off for you. So sometimes people aren't meant for it. But in my world, I've been honored. I've had, as a dealer, I was inducted into Utah's New Car Dealer Hall of Fame. Now, that's something that happens from your peers. I didn't buy that. That's something that.
And by the way, that's not something that's offered to everyone who happens to have a new car dealer. That's a very rare, rarefied thing. So that is special.
So when people find out that's part of my world, that I know how to be a car dealer. I know what it's taken. I had a very successful organization. I had what was really awful in Park City. And so I speak, they know that they do every thought that they have in their head, I've had, whether it's wonderfully good or awfully bad. I have felt what they felt. I understand what they understand. And it's easy for me to communicate with them because there's no place that they are that I have not been. So that helps me a lot. And now it's just a matter of, like, a lot of our stuff is referrals. I get people that, you know, in the dealer world, people belong to 20 groups, are called. So they're people all across the country.
Dealer 20s. Sure.
Yeah. And they have the same franchise, and they get together. And they talk. And my fees aren't overbearing. My fees are fair. They're less than some other people. And so when they sit down and talk to their friends, they go, yeah, we sold our Hyundai store, and who'd you use? Performance Brokerage Services. We got this guy who used to be a dealer. It's a good guy, John Mecham. And I get calls from guys that say, I heard you're a good guy, and you know what you're doing. Now that's something that as a car salesman, you need to be a good guy and have customers refer you when they go to church, when they go to the store.
That's true for any sales, though, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it's vital. But if you're not a good guy, if you don't have a sense of humor, you don't have the personality, you don't have the experience, you'll never get that kind of adulation or recommendation. So a lot of it has to do with
you are well liked. You are a likable guy, though, and it's not just like an act, like where sometimes you're like this, whatever. You know, in the time that I've known you, in I don't know, 10 or 15 years or whatever it's been, the time that I've known you, I've never known you to have anything but a good, positive outlook, even when things aren't going great. I've always known you to be a guy who is likable and who has a healthy self-esteem and knows what's what. I do think that's something that you do very well. You're a guy who knows the difference between bragging and being straight up about who you are. Because not some people would be too embarrassed to say, hey, yeah, Utah New Car Hall of Fame. That's a very rarefied, special thing. I should have brought it up. That's a good thing, and you're able to say that in a way that Sounds right and is good. And I think, but here's the thing is, I think that if a lot of salespeople understood this fine line, hey, talk about how good you are, but don't make it the center focus of the conversation. I think you do that well.
No, I heard it this way. Confidence is a wonderful thing to have, self-confidence. Conceit is a weird disease because it makes everybody sick but the one who has it.
Very well put. Very well put.
Yeah, really.
And it's a fine line. I do think some people who have suffer from a lot of insecurities can find conceit anywhere. You know, they see somebody driving a clean, nice car. Oh, that person's so uptight. Oh, yeah. It's their own insecurities, you know, that are putting that out there. I've had people, you know, hassle me about the suit I'm wearing, you know, and you're just like, really? you're gonna be upset that I took the time to go out and find this nice suit and like put it on and like actually get it tailored. Okay, cool. And so like there are people like that who are sensitive to that for sure. But I think generally more often than not, I think that a lot of times people either compensate one way or the other. They don't say anything good about themselves, or they say too much. I think you're a person who's balanced that and has figured that magic formula, and that's probably why so many people do like you. Now, these dealers, when they call you and they want to work with you, they do it based on the fact they've heard you're a good guy, which is totally true, and that's exactly that's how I know you. That's why I like you. So, the question for you next that I would put to you is, after they say that to you, what do you say? What's the right way to accept that compliment? What's the right way to say, hey, you're right, I am a good guy? I mean, what do you do when someone gives you a compliment like that? What do you say? From a referral source, any referral source, what do you say?
I say, where'd you hear that? Oh, Mike told me at the 20 group, or Mike told me the other day, and I heard Mike left, and we're in the church together, and he told me you're a good guy. I said, well, Mike's a good guy.
Bingo.
I love Mike. It was a joy, and it took us a little bit of effort, but we got the thing done. And I love helping my friends solve the problems.
You're so good, John. You're so good. You know, one of the things I admire about you is that I mean, not only do you know your stuff, but you know, you don't miss any of the punches. You're good, real good. John, for you know, my final question for you. What would you suggest? Well, maybe your own personal mantra, your own personal standard that you'd say. Let's hear it.
And I end all of my emails with it, and it goes, think good thoughts, and it's it. Just think good thoughts, and when you, that's it.
I love that.
And I know when I'm doing bad, and I train people on thought stopping, because a lot of people make mental monsters out of the most simple things, and they stay there. Why would you want to do that? I mean, don't step in the dog poop if you can see it in the road. Don't step in it. Walk around it.
So thinking positive thoughts. So think good things.
That's really important, because it really is the foundation for progress. And that's the 30 minutes of good, positive, productive every day. Just do that exercise, and good thoughts, that habit will come to you. Even when ugly health things or horrible things happen in your life, you have to deal with it, no question. There are things you have to deal with. But we spend all of our time in our own heads. We do. I mean, you have to deal with what's in front of you, and once you've dealt with that, you still got to get back in your own head and live your life. And you might as well do it thinking good thoughts, because you can choose that. You can choose what you think about. You can.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. What's the difference between thinking good thoughts and being naive and stupid? Because there's like a lot of people. I remember watching, you know, guys that I would be working with. There was one guy in particular. I won't name him by name just in case he hears this. I don't want him to be embarrassed, but he wasn't a terribly good salesman. He had a very, very positive outlook. He was a very nice man. Had a lot to offer in the way of kindness and so on and so forth. And he was in his 50s. And, you know, he just really struggled. He's one of those guys who just eking out a couple grand a month, just barely doing his thing. You know, I mean, I was there I made that sometimes in a day. And he was there just he'd come and say, Nate, what am I doing wrong? And try to go through his thing, and we'd try to help him out, stuff, whatever. But his positive thinking really wasn't, his positive thinking, I don't think it was objective. It was just kind of like, well, hopefully everything will go the right way. Gosh darn it. So like there's that,
Well,
and then what's the caveat to that?
Well, it's back to that story I told you about Dave Morrison, that little skinny guy. I wanted to make. I ran the department head meetings every week, and Dave Morrison, skinny, good guy, sweetheart, ran my advertising, and I wanted to make a point about the 30 minutes every day of good to positive productive. And so I said, part of Dave's pay plan is I asked him to lift weights every day at lunch. And
only
so
you would do that.
We had a 5-pound dumbbell, a 10-pound, a 15, and a 20. And so I brought Dave up, and he agreed because I made it part of his pay plan to do this. And every day he would do these exercises that I wrote out. And so the first day I asked him to pick up a 20-pound weight and do a curl. No way. It wouldn't happen. So we measured his arm at the beginning of this exercise. We measured it. And he could do 5 pounds, and pretty soon after a couple of weeks, he could do 10 pounds. And after a while. So,
I mean, he really was skinny, though. I mean, like, people don't really realize how skinny this guy was.
Oh.
Like, this is I mean, this to say
skinny guy,
a scarecrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't measure. We waited 45 days, but he was very diligent. He was supervised because people, and now it was a kind of a joke, so people would go downstairs and watch him do his 3 exercises with a dumbbell. After 45 days, his arms increased 1 7/8 inches around. And now, was that magic? Or was it a daily discipline of 30 minutes every day? It has to happen. It just has to. It has no choice not to happen. And psychologically, 30 minutes of positive productive, your energy will increase 1 7/8 minimum. So
thinking good thoughts. So you're saying that thinking good thoughts with action is what works, right? Because faith without, you and I both agree, ecclesiastically speaking, that faith without works is dead, don't we?
Yep.
Okay, so that's what this boils down to, right? Is this the hoping and the dreaming and the thinking these good thoughts is awesome, but if you don't actually do the work, then it great. Now what? And you end up in a situation where you're not moving forward. That's amazing. You helped that kid, and only you would tie a pay plan into something that would benefit him. You know, and well, I mean, I suppose long term, what did that do for you as an employer by helping him do that personal? What did you get out of it?
Well, even years later, people talk to me about some of the stuff we did. And that one stands out in their mind, which is cool.
I love this, and I love talking to you. You're one of the people who's helped mold my career and help me figure out things in the way I do stuff. And for people who don't like how much money I charge for a lot of my services, you can partly blame John because he's a person I consult with over pricing. And I'll usually come in with something, and John will tell me that it's too cheap. And he says, no, Nate, you're worth more. This is worth more. You need to charge a lot more. So he and I are always battling on that because I'm a guy who's made so much money, $20 and $40 at a time, that, it's taken a long career for me to get to a point where I realize that, what my weekend's worth or what my day's worth or whatever, and thank goodness people like John have come into my life. And I'll tell you, when I first started doing, training and speaking, well, in person, I charged $1,500 an hour. And I thought that, John, I was just the man who broke the bank at Monte Carlo. I thought I was just, and then fast forward to now, and that same thing will cost you quite a bit more money, won't it? But it's because of people like you, and you namely, more so than anyone, I think, the person who's really helped me make sure that my pricing is where it is. So for those of you who think that your checks to me are awfully big, well, you're right, and it's because of John Mecham. So, John Mecham, sales legend, thank you for helping all of us. And there's so many nuggets in here. So this is one that's worth listening to 2 or 3 times. I personally call John all the time, and you can all see why. John, thanks for taking the time.
You bet. Thanks, bud. See you.
Bye.
Cool interview with a cool guy who's done an awful lot. My good friend John has advised me through a lot of different things, and that's putting it lightly. What a good guy. Thanks for checking out Sales Legends, and thanks for checking out Sales Therapy. Feel free to visit our website and, of course, watch the next video. And if you haven't yet, subscribe.